That's impossible. The words slipped out before his lawyer could stop him. The entire courtroom turned. The defendant's face had drained of color. His fingers trembled against the polished wood of the defense table. At the back of the courtroom, the doors had just opened. A woman stepped inside, calm, composed, alive. He staggered backward in his chair. "You're dead," he whispered. Gasps rippled through the gallery. The judge's voice cut sharply through the silence. "Mr. Hale, sit down." But he couldn't stop staring. 3 months ago, she had vanished after a so-called car accident. The police report called it tragic. The insurance company called it verified. He called it closure. Now she was walking toward the witness stand, and every lie he had told under oath was collapsing in real time. "If you think you've seen shocking courtroom moments before," the prosecutor said quietly, "watch this. Before we go any further, subscribe, because what happened next didn't just expose financial fraud. It exposed betrayal so calculated that even the judge had to pause the hearing." The defendant swallowed hard, because the one witness he believed he had silenced was about to testify. "You may proceed," Judge Whitaker said, his voice steady but edged with something sharper now. The defendant, Daniel Hale, remained frozen in his seat. The woman walking toward the witness stand did not rush. She did not look at him. She did not acknowledge the whispers that swelled through the courtroom. Like a rising tide, she walked with measured steps, each one landing like a hammer strike against the version of reality Daniel had constructed. The clerk approached her with the Bible. "State your name for the record." Her voice was calm. "Emily Carter." Daniel's breathing became audible. "That's not possible," he muttered again. The judge's gavel struck once. "Mr. Hale, you will remain silent." Emily placed her hand on the Bible. "I swear to tell the truth." The oath completed, she sat. For 3 months, Daniel Hale had testified under oath that his girlfriend, Emily Carter, had died in a vehicle collision on Route 17. He had identified the body. He had signed the paperwork. He had filed the insurance claim, and he had cried convincingly enough for investigators to close the file quickly. But now she was here, alive. The prosecutor stood slowly. "Ms. Carter, can you tell the court why you are here today?" Emily inhaled. "I'm here because the man sitting at that table tried to kill me." The courtroom erupted. Judge Whitaker slammed the gavel repeatedly. "Order." Daniel shot to his feet. "She's lying." "Sit down," his attorney hissed, pulling him back. The prosecutor didn't look at Daniel. Double quotes. "Miss Carter, please explain." Emily folded her hands together, steadying them. 3 months ago, Daniel told me we were going on a short drive. He said he needed to clear his head." Daniel shook his head violently. "This is insane." "Mr. Hale," the judge barked. "Silence," Emily continued. "He stopped the car near an abandoned construction site. We argued. I told him I knew about the accounts." The prosecutor leaned forward slightly. "What accounts?" "The shell companies." The courtroom shifted again. Daniel's lawyer stiffened. Emily's eyes never left the judge. "I found transfers from Daniel's consulting firm into 3 offshore accounts. Millions of dollars. None of it reported." Daniel's face tightened. "She's guessing." The prosecutor ignored him. "How did you find this information?" "I work in compliance. I know what red flags look like." The judge scribbled notes. Emily continued. "When I confronted him, he panicked. He said I didn't understand how powerful his partners were." The word hung up, partners. The prosecutor spoke softly. Did he threaten you? Yes. Daniels' knuckles went white. He said accidents happen to people who dig too deep. A collective intake of breath filled the courtroom. If you're watching how quickly a fraud case turns into something darker, the prosecutor said quietly, "Stay with this." Judge Whitaker shot him a look but didn't interrupt. "Ms. Carter," the judge said carefully, "did you report these allegations to law enforcement at the time?" Emily's eyes flickered briefly, the first crack in her composure. "No, why not? Because I didn't think I'd get the chance." Daniel lunged forward slightly. "This is fiction." The judge slammed the gavel again. "One more outburst, Mr. Hale, and you will be removed." Daniel sank back into his chair. The prosecutor approached the evidence table. "Ms. Carter, what happened after the argument?" Emily swallowed. "He told me to get out of the car." Daniel's lawyer stood. "Objection. Narrative speculation." "Overruled," the judge said. "This is direct testimony." Emily continued. "He pushed me. I fell. He got back in the car." Daniel's voice cracked. "No, he reversed." Silence crushed the room. Emily's voice did not tremble. "He reversed toward me." The courtroom felt smaller, tighter. The prosecutor's tone lowered. "What happened next?" I rolled. Daniel's breathing grew erratic. I rolled down the embankment. The car went over. A murmur spread. Judge Whitaker leaned forward. "The car went over." "Yes. The police report states the vehicle was found burned. It was." Daniel stared at her like he was looking at a ghost. Emily's eyes hardened for the first time. "He thought I was inside." The words landed heavily. The prosecutor moved slowly. "Were you?" "No." The judge's pen stopped moving. "How did you survive?" Emily exhaled carefully. "I ran." The courtroom absorbed it. "I ran into the trees. I didn't stop." Daniel shook his head. "She's constructing this." The prosecutor turned toward the judge. "Your Honor, the prosecution has submitted forensic evidence indicating that." The passenger side door was open prior to ignition. Daniel's attorney stood abruptly. "This is new evidence." "It was disclosed," the prosecutor replied evenly. Judge Whitaker nodded. "It was." Emily continued. "I didn't go home. I didn't call anyone. I went straight to someone who had already been investigating Daniel." Daniel's eyes widened. "Investigating?" The prosecutor spoke calmly. "Yes." The judge looked at him sharply. "You're implying this fraud investigation predates the accident." "It does." Daniel's composure fractured. "You said this was about accounting discrepancies." "It is," the prosecutor replied. "An attempted insurance fraud. An obstruction." The courtroom buzzed. Emily folded her hands tighter. "I brought them everything." The prosecutor nodded. "Emails, bank transfers, recorded conversations." Daniel's head snapped up. "Recorded?" Emily finally turned to look at him. "You should have checked my phone." The silence that followed was deafening. If you think this was just a ghost walking into court, stay focused, because this case is unraveling in layers. Judge Whitaker leaned back. "Miss Carter, did you enter protective custody?" "Yes." "For how long? Until today?" Daniel looked physically ill. The prosecutor stepped forward. "Your Honor, the reason this witness remained undisclosed is because the defendant had already proven he would attempt to eliminate exposure." Daniel's attorney objected again. "Speculation." "Overruled." Emily's voice was steady again. "He told me I was a liability." Daniel's breathing quickened. "You misunderstood?" "No," she said quietly. I didn't. The prosecutor turned toward the jury box. The financial records showed $12 million, transferred to offshore accounts over 4 years. Daniel's lawyer stood again. Allegedly. Verified. The prosecutor corrected. The judge interjected. The jury will disregard commentary. Focus on facts. Emily continued. He said if the audit ever reached the parent firm, he'd lose everything. Daniel's eyes darted toward his lawyer. The prosecutor's tone sharpened. And instead of losing everything, you nearly lost her. Double quotes silence. Daniel whispered, I loved you. Emily's expression did not change. You loved control. The courtroom seemed to hold its breath. Judge Whitaker glanced at the clock. Proceed. The prosecutor retrieved a printed transcript. Ms. Carter, is this your voice? Yes. The audio began playing. Daniel's voice filled the courtroom. If you ever say a word, you'll regret it. The recording crackled with tension. Emily's quieter reply. Are you threatening me? Daniel's voice again. I'm promising you. The audio stopped. Daniel buried his face in his hands. His attorney leaned toward him urgently. Emily's testimony had done more than shock the courtroom. It had shattered the foundation of his defense. And this was only the beginning. Because the prosecution had not yet introduced the offshore banking trail. They had not yet revealed who Daniel's so-called partners were, and they had not yet shown the final piece of evidence that would explain why he truly believed she was dead. The judge looked at the prosecutor. Continue. The prosecutor nodded. Double quotes, Ms. Carter. Did Mr. Hale ever discuss life insurance? Daniel's head snapped up again. Emily's voice remained calm. Yes. How many policies were active at the time of the accident? 3. The courtroom gasped. And who was the sole beneficiary? She didn't look at Daniel. He was. Daniel's breathing became shallow. His lawyer whispered frantically. Judge Whitaker's eyes hardened. Mr. Hawley, you collected on those policies? Daniel hesitated. Yes. And declared her deceased under oath. Yes. Emily spoke softly. You didn't even wait a week. The weight of that statement settled heavily over the room, and for the first time since she walked in, Daniel Hale no longer looked shocked. He looked trapped. Daniel's attorney rose slowly, trying to reclaim control. Your Honor, we move to strike the implication that my client staged an accident. There is no forensic conclusion of attempted homicide. Judge Whitaker's expression did not soften. The jury will determine implication. Continue. The prosecutor turned back to Emily. Double quotes, Ms. Carter, when you went to investigators, what did you provide first? My phone? And what was on it? Access? The courtroom was still. Access to what? The judge asked. To Daniel's private ledger. Daniel's head snapped up again. There is no ledger. Emily finally allowed herself the faintest breath of something resembling certainty. There is. The prosecutor walked toward the evidence monitor. Permission to display Exhibit 42. Granted. A spreadsheet illuminated the screen behind the judge's bench. Rows, dates, transfers, shell, company names that meant nothing to ordinary eyes but everything to forensic accountants. The prosecutor pointed. These transfers total $12,473,000 over 4 years. Daniel shifted in his seat. Consulting revenue. The prosecutor didn't look at him. Transferred to entities registered in Cyprus, Belize, And the Cayman Islands. The judge leaned forward. Were these entities disclosed in tax filings? No, Your Honor, the prosecutor replied. Daniels? Attorney stood again. Offshore entities are not illegal. Undisclosed revenue is. The prosecutor answered. Emily remained steady. Some of the transfers were routed through an insurance adjustment firm. The courtroom quieted further. The prosecutor nodded. That firm processed the claim after your death. Daniel's breathing grew uneven. If you're watching how financial fraud unravels piece by piece, the prosecutor said evenly, you're seeing it happen in real time. The judge shot him a warning glance, but he allowed it. Double quotes, Ms. Carter, the judge asked carefully. Did Mr. Hall know you had access to this ledger? Yes. How? I confronted him with screenshots. Daniel whispered something under his breath. His attorney leaned closer. Stop reacting. She hissed. The prosecutor moved closer to the witness stand. Ms. Carter, did Mr. Hale ever explain why the funds were hidden? Emily paused. Yes. The courtroom leaned forward collectively. He said it wasn't just about money. Daniel's jaw tightened. What did he say it was about? The prosecutor asked. Protection? From whom? He said, powerful clients didn't want their names appearing anywhere. The word powerful settled like a weight to Judge Whitaker's. Eyes narrowed slightly. Did he name any of these clients? Emily hesitated just enough to register tension. Yes. The prosecutor glanced at the judge. Your Honor? The names in question are currently sealed under federal investigation. Daniel's head snapped toward his attorney. She looked pale. Judge Whitaker nodded slowly. Proceed carefully. Emily continued. He said if the funds were ever traced, it wouldn't just ruin him. It would ruin people who don't lose. The courtroom atmosphere shifted again. Less personal, more dangerous. Daniel's voice cracked. She's exaggerating. Emily finally looked directly at him. You told me they could make problems disappear? Silence. The prosecutor allowed the moment to breathe. Ms. Carter, after the accident, did Mr. Hale attempt to contact you? No. Did he search for you? No. Daniel's attorney objected again. Speculative. The judge shook his head. She can answer based on personal knowledge. Emily's voice remained controlled. He assumed I was gone. The prosecutor nodded. Because he saw the fire? Yes. And he never reported you missing separately? No. The judge looked at Daniel double quotes. Mr. Hale, did you file a missing persons report? Daniel swallowed. No. Why not? I believed she was deceased. You believed? The judge pressed. Yes. Emily's tone sharpened slightly for the first time. You checked the wreckage? Daniel looked stunned. You told me later when you thought I was gone that you watched it burn. The courtroom stiffened. The prosecutor raised a document. Phone tower data places. Mr. Hale at the site for 11 minutes after ignition. Daniel's attorney looked shaken. That proves nothing. It proves presence, the prosecutor replied. The judge leaned back. Mr. Hale, why remain at the scene? Daniel hesitated. I was in shock. Emily's voice cut softly. No, you were waiting. The tension in the room tightened again. For what? The judge asked. For certainty. Daniel's composure cracked. That's a lie. The judge's gavel struck. Control yourself. Daniel's breathing became ragged. If you're wondering how someone reacts when their certainty collapses, the prosecutor said quietly, observe. The judge did not interrupt. Emily folded her hands again. I stayed hidden because investigators Needed time? To do what? The judge asked. To track the money without alerting him. Daniel looked betrayed, not by her survival, but by the timing. The prosecutor stepped closer to the jury. For 3 months, while Mr. Hale collected insurance and continued moving funds, federal analysts traced the offshore accounts. Daniel's attorney whispered frantically. The prosecutor continued. They discovered layered transfers routed through a disaster relief fund. Gasps rippled. Judge Whitaker's voice lowered. Disaster relief? Yes, Your Honor. Donations diverted before distribution. Daniel looked physically ill. Emily's voice was steady. He said no one audits tragedy. The weight of that sentence landed hard. If you thought this was only about insurance fraud, it just became much bigger. Judge Whitaker removed his glasses briefly. Mr. Hale, do you deny involvement with relief funds? Daniel's lips parted. But no sound came. His attorney stood. My client will not answer without counsel. The judge nodded. That is his right. Emily continued, without prompting. He told me greed isn't about money. It's about winning. Daniel stared at her as though he no longer recognized her. You recorded that too? He asked weakly. Yes. The prosecutor nodded toward the clerk. Play Exhibit 51. The courtroom filled with Daniel's voice again. You think they'll ever trace relief allocations? People cry for 2 weeks and move on. The audio ended. Silence pressed in from all sides. Judge Whitaker's voice was measured now. Mr. Hale, is that your voice? Daniel said nothing. The judge turned to the jury. You will consider the recording alongside financial documentation. Emily? Inhaled slowly. For years, I believed he was ambitious. She paused. I didn't realize he was reckless. Daniel finally spoke softer now. I was protecting us. You were protecting yourself, she replied. The judge checked the time. This court will take a brief recess. But no one moved immediately, because the narrative had shifted completely. What began as a fraud case, then turned into an alleged, attempted killing, now expanded into diversion of public relief funds, and the defendant who thought he had silenced. The only witness was watching her dismantle him line by line. As bailiffs moved into position, Daniel leaned toward his attorney. What else do they have? He whispered. She didn't answer, because she didn't know, and that uncertainty was beginning to suffocate him more than the testimony itself. Emily stepped down from the witness. Stand calmly. She didn't look back. Daniel did. He watched her walk. Past the jury. Past the prosecutor. Past the doors he once believed she would never walk through again, and for the first time since this trial began, he understood that survival wasn't her greatest weapon. Patience was. Daniel did not sleep. During recess, he sat motionless at the defense table while his attorney whispered strategy after strategy that no longer sounded convincing. The courtroom slowly refilled. Emily remained seated behind the prosecution now, not hidden, not protected by distance, but present, visible, alive. Judge Whitaker entered, and the tension sharpened instantly. All rise. They sat. The judge looked directly at Daniel. Double quotes. Mr. Hale, you are reminded that your behavior will remain controlled. Daniel nodded faintly, but his eyes never left Emily. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, the state calls Special Agent Marcus. Vale, a tall man in a dark suit, approached the stand. He was sworn in. Agent Vale? The prosecutor began, When did you first make contact with Miss Carter? 2 hours after the vehicle fire. Daniel's head jerked slightly. The prosecutor continued. Describe her condition. Disoriented. Minor injuries. Covered in debris. But coherent. The courtroom absorbed every word. Did she immediately accuse Mr. Hawley of attempting to kill her? Yes. Daniel shook his head slowly. The prosecutor paced carefully. Why? Was her survival withheld from public record? For operational integrity? Explain. We had been investigating Mr. Hale's financial activity for 18 months prior. A ripple moved across the gallery. Daniel's attorney stiffened. 18 months? The judge repeated. Double quotes, yes, Your Honor. The prosecutor nodded.
Was Ms. Carter aware of this investigation before the incident? Not initially. Emily kept her posture composed. Agent Vale continued. When she approached us with financial documentation, her allegations aligned with data we were already tracking. Daniel whispered to his lawyer. They were watching me? She didn't answer. The prosecutor asked calmly, Agent Vale, what was the significance of the car fire? It accelerated the timeline. In what way? Attempted elimination of a witness triggers immediate federal escalation. The word elimination hung heavily. Daniel's jaw tightened. Agent Vale continued. We placed Ms. Carter under protective custody immediately. For how long? Until this morning. The judge leaned forward. And Mr. Hale was unaware? Yes. Daniel's breathing became uneven again. If you're watching what happens when someone thinks they erased the only threat, the prosecutor said quietly, this is that moment. The judge allowed it. Agent Vale, the prosecutor continued. Did Mr. Hale continue transferring funds after the incident? Yes. How much? An additional $2,300,000. The courtroom reacted audibly. Daniel's attorney rose. Objection. Relevance. Overruled, the judge said. It shows pattern. Agent Vale continued. He believed the investigation risk had been neutralized. Daniel's voice cracked. I didn't know she was alive. That's correct, Agent Vale replied calmly. Daniel froze. Correct? He echoed. Yes, you behaved as if you had successfully removed the primary risk. The silence was brutal. The prosecutor walked slowly toward the defense table. Agent Vale, did Mr. Hale ever inquire about discrepancies in the accident report? No. Did he request independent forensic analysis? No. Did he attend the vehicle examination? No. Daniel's hands trembled visibly. Agent Vale continued. In fact, Mr. Hale expedited cremation procedures. Gasps filled the room. Judge Whitaker's tone cooled further. Cremation? Yes, Your Honor. Daniel's attorney looked stunned. Daniel whispered, it was what she would have wanted. Emily's eyes flickered for the first time. You didn't ask me, she said softly. Daniel's face crumpled slightly. The prosecutor stepped back. Agent Vale, did the defendant ever express grief consistent with loss? Daniel's attorney objected again. Speculation. Sustained, the judge ruled. Rephrase. Did surveillance show unusual financial urgency following the death? Yes. How so? He initiated liquidation of joint assets within 48 hours. The jury shifted. Daniel looked smaller now, less composed, less certain. Agent Vale continued. He also attempted to delete archived communications. The prosecutor raised a printed log. These? Yes. Daniel buried his face briefly in his hands. You said they couldn't recover those, he whispered toward his attorney. She didn't respond. Agent Vale's voice remained clinical. Digital forensics retrieved 93% of deleted data. The judge nodded slightly. Proceed. The prosecutor turned toward the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, the defendant believed he had solved his exposure problem. Daniel stared at the table. But instead, the prosecutor continued, He accelerated the evidence. Agent Vale stepped down. Emily remained still. The courtroom felt like it was closing in on Daniel from every direction. His attorney rose slowly. "The defense calls Daniel Hale." The room stiffened again. Daniel hesitated. "You don't have to," his attorney whispered. He stood anyway. "If you want to see how someone reacts when denial is no longer an option, don't look away now." Daniel was sworn in. He sat. His eyes flickered briefly toward Emily, then away. "Mr. Hale," his attorney began gently, "did you attempt to harm Mrs. Carter?" "No." "Did you know she was alive?" "No." "Did you stage the accident?" "No." "Explain what happened that night." Daniel swallowed. "We argued. She stormed out of the car. I panicked. I lost control." "Lost control how?" "The car rolled." The prosecutor watched him carefully. "You're saying it was accidental?" "Yes." "Then why did you reverse?" The prosecutor cut in sharply. Daniel froze. "I didn't." Emily's gaze did not waver. "You did." Daniel's breathing quickened. "You're twisting it." The prosecutor stepped closer. "Mr. Hale, did you ever say to Ms. Carter that accidents happen to people who dig too deep?" Daniel hesitated. "I don't remember." The prosecutor played the audio again. Daniel's own voice echoed through the courtroom. "I'm promising you." Silence. Daniel's shoulders sagged slightly. "That wasn't literal," he said weakly. The judge's voice sharpened. "Under oath, Mr. Hale." Daniel's composure cracked further. "I was frustrated." "Frustrated enough to drive toward her?" "No." "Frustrated enough to collect 3 insurance policies?" "It was legal." "Frustrated enough to divert relief funds?" The prosecutor pressed. Daniel's voice rose. "I was protecting investors." "From what?" the prosecutor demanded. "From exposure." The courtroom froze. The prosecutor lowered his voice. "Exposure of what?" Daniel realized too late what he had just admitted. His attorney's face drained of color. Judge Whitaker leaned forward. "Answer." Daniel's voice broke. "Of the transfers." Silence settled like dust. Emily closed her eyes briefly. The prosecutor stepped back slowly. No further questions. Daniel sat there, breathing hard, staring at nothing. The illusion of control had dissolved completely. He thought she was gone. He thought the money trail was buried. He thought grief would shield him. Instead, the only witness he believed silenced had become the anchor of the prosecution. Judge Whitaker looked over the courtroom deliberately. "This court will recess for deliberation." The jury rose. Daniel remained seated. Emily stood. Their eyes met one final time. Not with anger, not with revenge, but with something colder, finality. And as the courtroom doors closed behind the jury, Daniel Hale understood something he hadn't anticipated. Survival wasn't her revenge. Truth was.